on, everybody? It is RayD-TCG here, and this is...
Hello, my name is RandomCosplayerXD, because I still think that's funny.
And we are here bringing you the very first ever Yu-Gi-Oh podcast on this channel. We are calling it the Yu-Gi-Oh Pod Squad. Welcome one and all. We are so excited to start this, and I just want to give a huge thank you to my friend here for joining me on this. I probably wouldn't have done it otherwise, because, I mean, podcasts, I wouldn't say boring is the word, but, you know, they're just...
You need someone who can just sit there and talk your ear off. Something I'm very proficient at.
Two heads are better than one, I gotta say.
That is true.
At any rate, just to start off, here's a few icebreakers. We're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves. So, of course, everybody knows me. I run the channel. My name is RayD-TCG, or just Ray for short. And I have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for over 20 years, and with a little bit of a break in between. However, that little break is 13 years, a little over 13 years. I just got back into the game about 2 years ago with the help of some of the guys from locals, people who have been on this channel like Guy or Brad. You know, they're some of the first people I met when I came back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals. If you don't know, Guy happens to frequent on my channel a lot with his deck profiles. You guys may remember him from my most popular video on the channel, the Ryuji voiceless voice build, which has over 1.3k views, which I'm very grateful for. You guys have done amazing with interacting with that video and all that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. What about you, random cosplayer?
Random's just fine.
How did you? So before I get into my story, how did you first get into Yu-Gi-Oh?
Just like any child in the late 2000s did on 4Kids.
Yeah, I mean, same here. So I used to watch it with my brothers growing up on 4Kids TV. Good times, by the way. Good times.
Nostalgic.
But I would always watch my brothers, John and Zach, play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like, I didn't have a deck, and I was like, oh, come on, I really want to play. Let me borrow one of your decks, Zach. Of course, you know, he wouldn't let either of us, my brothers, wouldn't let either of his brothers, me or John, borrow his deck. So for my 6th birthday in 2003, I got my very first deck from my dad. I was as happy as a kid on Christmas Day, all right? And
do you remember what deck it was?
So I don't remember all the cards in it, but I will tell you this. This is really funny. So one of the first cards I ever got was a fake copy of Gate Guardian, and it was called a Safe Gate Guard. And being my 6-year-old self back then, I didn't know how like card effects worked fully. So I thought, you know, oh, this is a level 11, so I need to tribute 3 monsters to. I need to tribute 3 monsters to summon this, and you know, playground Yu-Gi-Oh! We made things up as we went, right?
Yeah. I had a certain card. It's featured in one of the Fiend Smiths. I blank on the name, but it's a it's like fear something despised. But basically, it shows up in Fiend Smith sequence. It's that big fiend that hovers over. But basically, one of my favorite things is that I would have 2 copies of them, and then if I managed to pull 2 copies in my hand, I could summon both of them out by tributing the entire board, so my monsters and theirs.
Oh,
and a lot of people did not like that. I don't know what I was thinking, but They just went with it?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds almost like, if I didn't know any better, I'd think you were talking about sphere mode, but
I know it wasn't sphere mode. Oh god. If I managed to have a sphere mode, like way back then, wouldn't be worth much to this day, but
yeah.
but it still would be cool.
Yeah, that I mean, shoot. I mean, kind of touching on that a little bit more. So back in the day, and this was also back when there was no limit on the deck size either.
Oh yeah, thank you guys in Germany for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so like
3 of every card.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that deck was like what 2,200 cards, and it took him like 15 minutes to shuffle. So imagine Rhoda, to search for a warrior in your deck, you'd have to shuffle, and God, I can only imagine like the people who got paired with these guys. I can only imagine just this pain and suffering they went through.
Yeah.
And you know, back then I thought, you know, oh, look at my 200 card deck. I've got 5 Pot of Greeds. I've got 3 Monster Reborns, 7 Blue Eyes White Dragons. I'm unstoppable. And you know, that was back when we didn't really understand like a lot of the rules and stuff. We understood the basic rules, like don't touch your opponent's card without asking, although we rarely ever follow that. We still don't follow it to this day. But yeah, it's kind of how I got started in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think that's how a lot of people in my generation got started. Just the playground Yu-Gi-Oh era, where you know, rules meant almost nothing, and you know, MST negated, and nobody. Well, actually, speaking of old school cards, Colby, I've got this card right here. It's called Pot of Greed. I just have no idea what it does. Do you have any idea?
Let's see.
Like, I see the card text on here. Maybe it's just because I don't read my cards.
God, I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player. I don't know how to read either. But if I had to take a guess, hold on, let me just.
Yeah, maybe if we take a closer look.
Just the card I drew, Kaiba. Pot of Greed. It allows me to draw 2 cards from my deck.
Well, you know, now that I'm taking a closer look, it does indeed say draw 2 cards from your deck. Well, I guess we've established the answer to the age-old question. What does Pot of Greed do? Now we know. And indeed, we also have the card I was also talking about earlier. Where is yes. Because, you know, my lame brain doesn't know how to read. What does this card do?
That is MST, or Mystical Space Typhoon.
Does it negate?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
MST always negates.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
It's for some reason it doesn't negate Mirror Force. I've tried that before online, and but I mean, like I've done it against. I've used MST against this card called Rage with Eyes of Blue, and it's supposed to summon 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, but I used this MST against that card, and they didn't get to summon their Blue Eyes White Dragons.
So it must have negated, right?
Yeah, I mean, selective negation, but you know, apparently, you know, that's not going to be an issue anymore, because apparently there's new support coming out for Mystical Space Typhoon, so it actually negates now.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, you heard me right. There is apparently new support for MST coming out. And it does indeed negate.
We get support for MST, but where's my Toon support at? Where are my Toon supports?
Right, this is the Toon guy here.
Yes.
Honestly, with the match I had the other day against Toons, I don't think I want them to see support, because I had, if you guys don't know this, I had a 44-round game against Toon Stun of all things the other day. I've been I've been playing around with Paleozoics on Master Duel and in the TCG. Now, that deck is a lot of fun, but man, does it make for some long duels. Like, you saw it, 44 rounds.
44 rounds, and the guy quit.
Yeah.
Oh.
He just couldn't take it anymore. But, at any rate, yeah, that's kind of one of the decks I've been messing with. You've actually been helping me build that deck, and I appreciate that, because
no problem.
You know,
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, because I've been kind of in and out of the game for a minute, but I've been trying to make my way back in. That's why we're doing this podcast, because it kind of motivates me to, keep making content and keep playing the game despite how volatile the format is. And that's something else I actually want to touch up on. So, of course, as you people know, there's a ban list coming soon. We don't quite yet know what's going to be on it, but I want to ask your opinions about the current format. So, of course, we've got a lot of Yugioh running around, Mitsurugi, Malice, Fiendsmith is still in the meta. Now we've got K9 coming. We've got K9 coming soon. What are your thoughts on the current meta? And I guess I'll follow up with another question. What is the viability of rogue decks currently?
So, to answer your first question with my personal opinions on how the meta is, it is very much who can go first and who can build the best board. That is basically how it seems nowadays.
I can agree. It always has been kind of that way for a while. I will concede that. However, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
But finish your point, and I'll give
basically it's whoever can get out there boss monster the fastest while playing through hand traps, and if you don't open up any, you kind of get put into a situation of, cool, now I have to sit here for 30 minutes and wait for someone to build their board. But then there are some decks that just play like one or two cards and like pass. It's a very mixed situation.
Hang on 1 second, y'all. But anyways, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. However, lately in the past year, there have been some very good going second decks.
Yes, there have.
I think one example is Tenpai, although more or less that had fallen out of the meta for quite a while until the introduction of the Dragon Ruler support.
Yeah.
And that kind of brought it back some. It's not as easy for them to do their Tenpai OTK these days because of
cards like Heatwave become more accessible, with a few others, but Heatwave just the top off my head.
Right, and also because Tenpai got hit pretty hard. Last year.
Wasn't like
I think Sangan summoning got limited
to like one.
Yeah, there was I think most of the level 3 and 4 dragons either got hit to 2 or to 1.
Yeah. And
then I think there's like a couple that are, I think Kaiman got hit too. I don't exactly remember, but
me neither.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, yes, going first has always been the move, but lately, there have been the insurgence of going second decks, such as Tenpai, and there's also other decks too. I can't really think of off the top of my head. But you've also got the mulch armies, which is basically Maxi at home, and that's kind of given like or decks that that either go second, or if players know that they're gonna go second because maybe they have bad luck with the die roll or something. The mulch armies give them
some reassurance and a way to come back, help get out some.
Now, I'm kind of mixed on those cards, to be honest. I mean, I think they're a necessary evil. They're not as powerful as Maxi, so I don't mind the existence of those cards in the TCG. But if Maxi were legal in this format, much like it is in the OCG and the Master Duel format, I absolutely would not want the mulch armies, because essentially in Master Duel, what you have Maxi at 2, mulch armies. I think all of them are at 3 currently. I think the one that lets you draw if your opponent special summons from banished or graveyard. I don't know if those have come in yet, but essentially you have 11 Maxis, and I think that creates for that
interesting.
Interesting is the way I'll put it, for lack of a better term. But because with the mulch armies, you have to control no cards, so it's 9 times out of 10 you're going second playing with those. Mm-hmm. And I think they do, in the TCG with Maxi not legal, thank goodness, I think they are relatively balanced in a sense. Unlike Maxi, where you can just activate it on going first or going second. You don't have to account for potential bricks. Like the age-old argument, Maxi is there to stop the combo decks. But the combo decks are also playing Maxi, and
to help get to the combos.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of just a lose-lose situation, because Maxi just has no restriction whatsoever. But the mulch armies, they have those restrictions where you have to control no cards, and they only trigger if you special from certain areas. So
yeah.
But I will say the mulch armies, at least the jellyfish, have made it to where Fluanderies is no longer immune to the powers of Maxi-like effects. Because
it's just any summon.
Exactly, from the hand, and Fluanderies exclusively summons from the hand. But before, like in Master Duel formats and the OCG, like Fluanderies could just get away with the opponent shotgunning Maxi, and look, shotguns Maxi. Well, great, I'm playing Flu. Enjoy
not drawing anything.
Yeah. Go hand neutral for nothing.
Go ahead and go -1.
Yeah, for nothing. But yeah, and kind of going a little broader into the format. I don't hate it, but I think one of the things I hate most as a moment, like Fiendsmith, for example. Like, I don't hate the Fiendsmith archetype. I think it's very good. I think 2 of the things I don't like about it most is number 1, it's splashable in almost every deck. I don't think we've had very many archetypes like that could just be splashed into pretty much any deck, in the format.
Yeah.
And then number 2, I think Moon is it kind of going back to it being splashable. Any deck that can summon a Link 2, which is Moon of the Closed Sky, or Moon Goddess of the Closed Sky. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's pretty much full Fiendsmith combo from there. And
well, if you play it right.
I think like and I've talked to and our friend Brad, he's had an he's expressed this issue a lot, that he'll use 2 to 3 hand traps, stop his opponent, and then all of a sudden his opponent will use like the Fiendsmith engraver in hand, or he'll link off his opponent will link off 2 monsters, then oops, full Fiendsmith combo, and those hand traps he feels were meaningless to him. Like, he stopped his opponent's main combo just for him to
get full Fiendsmith combo,
and
which can either lead to Desiree or Caesar, which is very good.
Both are very good cards.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've played my fair share of Fiendsmith. Not in every deck. I've tried it in ABC. I've tried it in Fiendsmith Chimera. That's a deck I'm currently rebuilding. But I find I'm of the mind that if your deck runs light fiends inherently, that I'm not as opposed to it as I would with most decks that are like, oh look, the Link 2 and the Moon, I'll go full Fiendsmith combo, haha, your hand taps mean nothing.
Yeah, no, I get
so you. I don't know. As a fellow Fiendsmith player, what's your take on all that?
So, funny enough, I actually think it's quite good that it's a little bit splashable. Not into like the full sense that you bring up with but like it is nice to know that because at the minute I've been doing a lot of Fiendsmith Yugioh, at least when I'm doing competitive, which isn't very often as I used to.
Relatable. Work. We're adults. Work keeps us busy and whatnot.
Yeah. It's also, just trying to find the energy after to go and, sit through the combos and just play the game. And honestly, I don't really like playing competitive anymore. I kind of killed it for myself whenever I went to, like, regionals and just... I couldn't find any enjoyment in it, and so I took like a little break from Yu-Gi-Oh, and now I'm trying to get back into it with like a deck that plays itself, like Yubel Fiendsmith.
Mm-hmm.
But I do kind of like how the Fiendsmith archetype, how you can kind of splash a little bit in there with different decks. And it kind of does make your opponent think, like, okay, do I stop the Fiendsmith, or
what else could they, what else could they possibly
basically
have?
I like how it is that it's that you can basically put it out as just fodder. Yes, you're wasting slots, but at the same time, it's kind of useful if you know what you're doing with it.
Right.
But
and I will also say...
it is like a double-edged sword with
right.
like how good it is that you can splash it in, and how good you could, splash it in for the knot. Because one hand, you have it. On the other hand, your opponent has it.
Right. And, I will say, I don't really mind Fiendsmith existing. It's a very good splashable engine. However, my issue with it is that most decks that can make a Link 2 can get into it, and that's my issue is decks just generically being able to link into it with Moon. I think that's my main issue.
Listen, if they just ban Moon, we don't have to worry about it.
Yes, because you
but
can still,
at the same time,
right? You can still easily make. You can still easily go full Fiendsmith combo.
if you can like draw it,
right? Because
instead of like making it right off the bat, it's now an engine that you have to draw into.
I think Because I think it's relatively easy to draw into it, or there's a lot of ways.
That way.
It really does feel that way too, doesn't it?
Because if you can get like Engraver, or if you can get the card that summons 2 Light Fiend tokens. I mean, there's also ways.
Sanct, I think, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of people running that. I've seen there was one guy, he actually has a deck profile on my channel. He actually runs Sanct as kind of like a backup in case Tract gets ashed. He does have the Sanct to get that light token, or that Light Fiend token.
To go into Requiem and start
right.
combo.
And, I think, like I said, that's my main issue is with Moon being in the format. Basically, any deck can produce full Fiendsmith combo. Unlike having to actually run the cards in the main deck and the extra deck, and Moon not being an option to fall back on. I think you should have to either commit your normal summon, depending on the circumstances, hard draw into the Engraver or the Tract or what have you, or if you're like me, in Fiendsmith Chimera, a lot of people are running Magnum the Reliever, which happens to be a Light Fiend, and if I fusion summon into him, he's full Fiendsmith combo. He's a level 8 Light Fiend. Good card. He lets you shuffle back poly, draw a card, and then boom, I can go full Fiendsmith combo, assuming I haven't fusion locked myself.
Yeah. like I said, it's a double-edged sword. There's always... It's going to be like that with any new card that comes out, especially hand traps and...
Because Malice... In my opinion, I think Malice is the bigger issue right now, in my opinion. Because Malice, they can do so much. I mean, you can add Ash is basically irrelevant. I would say irrelevant necessarily.
It's hard to get through with Malice because it's just we've never had such a powerful archetype that plays around with the graveyard and banishment so well, and the only counter that we can really come up with is Lancia.
Artifact Lancia, or something that...
if you're crazy enough, Iron Imperial Wall, if you can get that out.
Because honestly...
Or having to resort to playing Stun with Necro Valley. Which locks out the graveyard.
Right, so they can still somewhat play around Necro Valley, but they can't. There are certain things
they can't do it fully.
Yeah, there are certain things they can't.
Because pretty much anything that gets trapped in the graveyard is gonna stay dead.
But Artifact Lancia, and I don't think they're gonna ban Lancia, I don't think they're really gonna hit Lancia at all. But I will say Lancia hits a lot more decks than you think. So you think Malice and Fluwandereese are the only decks that die to Artifact Lancia? Let me tell you something. My dinosaurs actually completely die to Lancia. I would rather get hit by Shifter playing my Dino deck than playing than having to play under Lancia, because guess what? We can't even play under Lancia. Double Evo Pill, can't activate it. Miscellaneousaurus, can't activate it.
Basically you have a hard time getting into Transmeteorosaurus or...
Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which happens to be my favorite boss monster.
It was one of them. I don't play dinos.
Which reminds me, the Ryuji stuff is actually... I haven't seen a lot of people play dinos at locals, but once I finish building my dino deck again, it's for all of you people on the channel who follow me. Dinos is one of my favorite decks still to this day. I may not play it much anymore, but it's one of my favorites. The Ryuji support basically turns dinos into a 1-card combo. The field spell is basically 1-card combo for dinos, but more on that later. We're here talking about the current format. And Malice is just, again, going back to Malice, it's just one of those decks that's just really, unless you're like running Lancia, like, or main decking Lancia, and you're going blind, into a tournament going, a lot of people are playing Malice, so I have to be ready for them.
Mhm.
Like Ash, Ash doesn't really do a whole lot. Like I said, I mean, you can stop, stopping the draw too. That Chessy Cat does is really good. I mean, stopping Pot of Greed is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you ask that, and they can just do a million other things.
Okay.
Losing that draw too isn't very impactful, and I think honestly,
as you think one would be.
honestly, this format, I would say if it wasn't for the Mulch Armies, because Ash basically just stops those cards. If it wasn't for them, I would say like, Ash would be kind of irrelevant this format, or at the very least, it would be a sideboard card.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think some people, some prevalent YouTubers have suggested, putting it in the sideboard because
It's just
doesn't.
not as prevalent as it used to be.
It's
with,
just not as impactful. Kind of like in tier sprite format. It just
Just kinda
Ash,
sits there.
Ash just wasn't as impactful because it didn't do enough to stop the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are in hand trap format. We've been in hand trap format for years, but Ash was one of those cards. Like 2 years ago, for example,
Yeah.
if you ash, a certain card, like Branded Fusion, for example, like that just
We're done.
yeah, it pretty much just stops their entire turn.
Yeah.
Unless you draw a called by or cross out or what have you. But those cards are limited now.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Ash used to be very impactful hand trap, but it's just at least as of currently, it's just not as impactful as it used to be.
Yeah.
And because I remember when I first started playing, or when I first got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! A couple of years ago, and I was playing Dinos, like I could use Ash Blossom against an opponent, and they would end up building a half board, and in turn, that would happen to me unless you're really good Ash baiting. In which case, like for example, I've had a lot of people Ash Fossil Dig. And Fossil Dig is not once per turn, and it's at 3.
Yeah.
So why people ash that, I don't know.
It's just like the same people on Master Duel. They see glowing button, press.
Yeah, pretty much.
I have to. I can't throw a lot of shade on that.
I think
I am that person.
we're all guilty of that at some point.
When I first started Master Duel, I was like, button.
Yep. Ooh, shiny button.
Pretty much.
Yep.
But going back to like your second question, are rogue decks viable in this format? And I hate to say it, but like I don't really think they are. Like maybe you'll get your like little oddball, but like
Memento I've seen has been topping some regionals.
It tops sometimes, but it's just not like that relevant to like go into. It's either you play meta or you go to have fun and you play a rogue.
Yeah, or kind of going back to the argument that a lot of Max C defenders would use in the same way for the Mulch Armies is that the Mulch Armies the Mulch Armies make their rogue decks competitive, and yeah, maybe to a degree, that is, I'll admit I've used the Mulch Armies on Omega, and it is satisfying to resolve those against a meta deck. But
it is.
I can also tell you how infuriating it is
to play under it.
To play under it, or to be forced to play under the Mulch Armies. It's like because in this format there are a lot of 1-card combos, and so if they use Mulch Armies against you and you don't have a way to stop those, and you're like, well, you know, what do? I could just pass on an empty board and deny them those resources, or
But you deny yourself so much more in the way of defense, like, or in the way of just like, okay, if I deny them this, or like, okay, how many can I get to at least get a negate out? Whenever I was playing under Motomori, that would be my first thought. Like, okay, I am how far into a negate? Like, how many summons exactly is it gonna take? And I would always, always weigh the odds. Like, do I stop here and just play defensive and deny them that access, or do I let them go like +3, +2, or like sometimes even +4 if they got me like right in the middle of a pretty prominent combo. It really just depends on, because Yu-Gi-Oh, it is two types of things. It is a game about skill, about luck. You gotta, because you gotta
100%.
You gotta know what to counters what's gonna happen if you do this, and then you gotta like pray that like your opponent breaks, or like those, if you do just go out to get this negate, that they just don't draw into like any major starter cards or like main engine type stuff, just like maybe 2 bricks or like a brick out of those 3 cards that you gave them, just trying to get out to that one negate.
Right. So basically, if you don't have a way to stop the Molcharmies, it's either
you play under them, or
you pray that they bricked.
Yeah, and that's just something that they're throwing out to get to engine.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Or just be like me and
it's the mind games.
Yeah, or just be like me and play paleo, because a lot of people, they'll shotgun the Molcharmies, and then I'll be like, okay, set 5 pass, kicking some ass.
Set 5 pass.
And then they just lost out on a bunch of card advantage. Meanwhile, like
you're chilling.
Yeah, I'm chilling. I'm just waiting for my opponent to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I think another deck, of course, that I think frustrates a lot of people is Mitsurugi RayD-TCG. I mean, you look at the top list for a lot of the regionals, and it's almost exclusively either that, Malice, or some kind of Fiendsmith variant. Now, of course, there are some regionals that have quite a variety of topping decks,
Yeah.
But for the most part, we see,
Mitsurugi, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. The format at this point, while I don't hate it, there is a feeling of like, this is kind of stale. Like,
yeah, because you're not seeing, like,
feels
back
like
in the day, you could go into a tournament, there'd be a guy running, like myself, tunes, or like just something out of the board crazy, like or they'll be like running something completely different than like what the meta suggests.
Right. It kind of gives you that feeling of despair, because it's like, is this what all formats are going to look like going forward?
Is this how the game has progressed so far? Like, this is just what Yu-Gi-Oh is. It's either you play the meta, or you're just gonna keep losing against it. And
either you play the meta, or you play like anti-meta stun, and it feels like there's no in between. And it's kind of in a rock and a hard place, because you've got the people who are like, these meta players suck, meta sheet, blah, 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 blah. And then you've got like on the other hand, you've got
people who actually enjoy just playing the meta decks.
Yeah.
That they're not playing it because they're meta, but because it's fun to them. Like a lot of people, when the first Ryziel, the Kaijus, whatever, blanking on their names. And Malice first came out, a lot of people were like going straight for Malice because they figured that would be the best one, and of course waifus. But on then the other hand, there's just this really easy rank 4 engine that can speak to a lot of simple players that like don't want to go through a complicated board to play some of their favorite X, Y, and Z monsters. It was just,
and of course it's very of course those archetypes bridge very well into one another, Alan.
Yeah.
With King of the Feral Imps being a generic rank 4 that can search a reptile, so Ryziel can play that to bridge in their Mitsu engine if they don't hard draw into it.
Yeah.
So, I can understand the frustration of a lot of people. Like myself, I love playing rogue decks. I almost exclusively play rogue decks. And I don't, I've got friends, a lot of my friends do play the meta, and I don't mind that, but there are people out there who do feel a sense of despair, like I said, because it feels like, because they're constantly going against it, and, it feels like there's almost no variety. And, it feels like, back when that couple of years ago, a lot of what I saw was people playing branded and people playing the gimmick lock. Now, thankfully, a lot of those like soft locks in the game have kind of disappeared. Yeah, Cashtira locking down the fields, branded using the gimmick lock, which thankfully that card's banned. We've had a lot of these soft locks have or even hard locks like King Calamity have disappeared, and I am gotten banned or whatever, and I am very happy about that, because as much as I kind of have a feeling of disdain for this format, it nothing compares to a format where 2/3 of the players were running around Calamity locking, gimmick locking,
just basically
or locking your zones with with Kashtira. And I will say, if I had to choose between the current format and the format from a couple of year or 2 years ago, where you had those soft locks in the game, I like the format now, because at least you have a feeling of you can interact with your opponent to a degree, and it's not like it's not like you're gonna lose to some as much as I hate to say it, you're not gonna lose to some degenerate strategy, like somebody locking you from playing certain aspects of the game, lingering floodgates. And this may or may not be an unpopular opinion. I've not really seen polls on this, but I think lingering floodgates, for the most part, are one of the worst things to happen to this game.
Yeah, because it shuts a part down that is either essential to your deck, or it just makes it unplayable, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
And I think King Calamity being one of the biggest, being one of my biggest pet peeves, because I remember when that card was around, when Centurion came out, they found a way to get it out pretty consistently, might I add. And for a while I hated the deck, not because I didn't hate the deck itself. I hated that it could do that, easily get into the Calamity lock, and you will not believe the happiness that I felt when I saw that card was banned.
Yeah.
Because that's why a lot of people, including myself, hated playing against Centurion, and going first against them specifically, because they're like, oh great. So along with being able to set up the level 12 synchro, the one that's an Omni negate, battle negate, and a summon negate, they also get to set up this turn skip card. and you, now it didn't stop all effects from activating, but it stopped all effects on the field from even being able to activate. And I'm just glad for the most part, we're past the whole format of lingering floodgates like that.
It is definitely. It is sort of like not necessarily a full reset, but a nice little update to not have to worry about. Oh, cool. If this happens, I just set down my deck and I can't play anymore.
Exactly.
It makes the game that's already in a struggling format, as I see it, where it's if you go first, you're almost guaranteed to win if you can't pull something. With those now lingering floodgates gone, it makes the game feel a little more interactive. Because I don't know about you, but I love back and forth between games.
At least in this
It
format.
makes it feel like you earned your win, or that you can respect the loss because you tried your best.
Right. And
you did everything that you could.
And I feel the same way too, because even though the decks in the meta are very powerful, they're not impossible to defeat.
Exactly.
Because
there's no that one stand that is just impossible to beat.
Because a lot of the
Cash Harry used to be in.
A lot of the generic Omni negates are gone. There are still some around, but you have to Appaloosa. Well, not an Omni negate necessarily, but it was a monster negate. And it was a pretty awful one to go against if you were playing a monster heavy strategy. Baron's gone. Borload Savage is gone. Although that one I didn't mind as much because you had to play links, and there were ways to stop it from being if that was a 5th summon, for example, it would try to activate its effect to equip a link. You could chain the Biru, and it wouldn't get it. You could stop it before it gets its Omni negate. Things like that. I didn't mind Borload Savage as much as the other Omnis around, like Baron. Baron was just far too generic. Appa was too generic.
Because you could essentially put that in anything.
Right.
And it'd be god tier.
Right. Like I used to play it in dinos, and my end board would consist of Baron and the Evilzor monsters, which also are pretty strong in their own right, but you have to play specifically dinosaurs to get into those negates. And archetype specific negates and stuff, whether or not they happen to be Omni negates, I actually don't mind them as much. In fact, I don't mind them at all, because you have to play that specific archetype. Like the Evilzars, you have to play dinosaurs to get into Lars, Dolka, and Lagia.
Yeah.
Which are very good cards, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Might I also add that going back to the lingering floodgates, I will say, with the new canine stuff coming out, our victory over most of the lingering floodgates being gone might be short-lived, unless they decide to do a preemptive ban on Paradise Smasher. Do you know what that card does?
I haven't read anything from anything that's majorly upcoming.
Right.
I haven't really read too much into it.
Because it's a rank 5 monster, and rank 5s are very difficult to get into.
Yeah, but, because rank 4 is generic.
You don't have to tribute summon rank to get into a rank 4.
But you need to at least tribute one card to go into.
Unless you've got a way to spam out level 5 monsters without using your normal summon. And with the new K9 stuff coming out, they can that's basically I'm pretty sure it's a rank 5 turbo deck. They can get into Paradise Smasher, which if you don't know, it basically you roll a dice with your opponent rolls a dice as well, and you have one of the effects is that you can actually change one of the results to a 6, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. To you people in the comment section, correct me if I am wrong, but I think if whoever gets the higher result, whoever gets the highest result, I think cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn.
Oh, that is trouble.
Or until it's either for the rest of the turn or until the end of the opponent's turn. And I think that's that it's cards like that do not need to be in the format whatsoever.
Yeah.
I can understand an argument for things like, I don't mind floodgates that can be outed. So once you out them, you're back in the game. Like Secret Village is one, because it's very specific. You have to control a spellcaster for one. I see White Forest players often using that, whether it be in their side or their main. I know you play White Forest, so you can probably attest to that.
Funny enough, I kind of stopped. I forgot how to play it.
Oh.
That is the main reason.
Yeah, but it's a spellcaster heavy deck.
It is a heavy spellcaster deck. From back when I played it, like before Alliance came out, it was very spellcaster heavy. Anything after like the newest White Forest support that came out in Alliance and then so on, I have no idea about.
Right. But I will say floodgates like that I don't mind, because once you out them, hooray, you can start playing you can continue to play the game again like normal. So
Yeah.
there are I don't mind like continuous floodgates existing, because you can you have ways to out them. They're annoying to play against sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
T-Sabu is one of them. T-Sabu, while it's limited, if you go against it, it's can often be the bane of your existence. And but cyclones, MST, back row removal can get rid of that stuff, and then you can play the game again. Hooray!
Yeah.
But that's my thought. Those are my thoughts on the current format, and kind of reflecting on past formats. I actually, while the power of these meta decks with the multiple ways to get into their combo, with just one card, one card can be all it takes. While I'm not entirely happy about it, looking back, at least you have a chance to beat a lot of these decks. It's not impossible. You can actually interact with them.
Yeah.
Unlike some past formats where there were so many lingering floodgates around, and
that it was borderline hard to play against. It was like whoever.
Right. Well, I will say there are a couple exceptions to that. Like while I hate playing against these, Droll and Artifact Lancia are two lingering floodgates I don't necessarily mind, being around, because I feel like, I'd classify them as a necessary evil. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Because while you hate playing against them, they are kind of necessary against some decks. Like they can stop, they can stop a lot of these meta decks. For example, Droll shuts down a lot of what Mitsu can do.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they open Prayers first, which Prayers, in my opinion, that's definitely a custom card. That you can't change my mind about that. But if they don't open Prayers, Droll can stop a lot of what they want to do, and they're forced to play under such an oppressive lingering floodgate, which again I think is a necessary evil. in the format. I don't think that card's going anywhere. Lancia, also a necessary evil against Malice, because it pretty much just turn skips that deck.
Yeah.
And, like I say, Lancia's, against other decks is heavily underrated, because they can stop so many decks. Because they're with almost every deck, you have to banish something sometime, either to activate an effect or, to pay cost or what have you, or for a summoning condition. So it can make things a little bit dicey, but there are decks that can still play under it regardless. They just maybe can't build as strong of a board. But we're getting pretty close to time here. Is there anything else you want to add to the conversation? We've kind of covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. No, pretty much. Those are my thoughts on the current meta.
Right, and again, I'll reiterate by saying, while I'm not in love with the current meta,
it's what we got.
Yeah, it's it's better than I'd rather play against going kind of play into a board that
going
full
second
combo than having to
deal with so many lingering floodgates.
And that's kind of been the premise of the conversation.
Yeah.
But
just meta discussion.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next week when we again just kind of talk about more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and also we didn't get to do it today, but I would like to challenge you to a duel, but not just any duel, a goat deck duel. Yes, I still carry a couple goat decks, but it's like playground goat. It's goat jank is the best way to describe it.
What I can thrive in. You, sir, have yourself a challenge.
All right, well, tune in next week where we see who can win with these very janky decks, and
maybe I'll bring along a surprise.
Yep, and well, that'll be it for this podcast. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. And with that being said, pass turn. Okay.